Prisons can't take many more prisoners. Temporary early release schemes have brought only temporary relief, and now, after a review, the government is going ahead with a more permanent scheme. Some serious offenders will get out earlier. The family of PC Andrew Harper have been told that 2 of his killers will, after all, be eligible.
I'm left just bitterly disappointed. I knew it was going to be possible that we were in this situation, but I had hoped for better, bearing in mind that we're looking at 2 Category A prisoners.
The Justice Secretary Alex Norris visited the site of Welland Oaks Prison in Leicestershire today. The government has taken around 1,000 prisoners out of the early release scheme.
Those who've been in prison for rape, for child sexual offences, they won't be in scope. We'd like to have gone further than that, but that's an important step forward.
Why did you not go further? Why are people who, for example, have been responsible for killing people going to be getting out early?
So, important to recognise that already people who are on life sentences, people who've been convicted of murder, terror offences, they're outside of this. I'm pleased we've been able to add rapists and child sex offenders there as well. We would have liked to have gone further, but we couldn't, because if we do that, we would run out of prison places very quickly.
The new scheme means that inmates who would have served half their sentence can get out after a third. Those who would have served 2/3 can get out after half. The new exclusions, though, mean that instead of 6,000 prisoners being released early from the autumn, now 5,000 will be. Katie was overwhelmed to learn that her attacker would not now be eligible for early release.
I can rest easy and know that he's going to stay in prison for the term that was promised ultimately, but it makes me angry for other people. It makes me really worried for other people, and I could get as upset about that as I could for myself.
The government says the largest prison building programme since Victorian times is now underway. HMP Welland Oaks will be a high-security Category B training prison. It'll house up to 1,700 inmates. That'll certainly help with the overcrowding situation, but it won't be ready until 2029. In the meantime, the government has promised that all those who are released early will be subject to the strictest of controls. Carl Dinnan, News at 10, Leicestershire.
Well, the early release scheme has been about trying to free up space in prisons. So just how acute is the capacity crisis in England and Wales? As of yesterday, over 86,000 people were in prison, with a spare capacity here of almost 2,400. It means that prisons are more than 97% full, as over the decades the number of inmates has grown. In fact, since 1900 here, the prison population has quadrupled in size, but saw particular growth in the 90s and early 2000s. It passed 50,000 here in 1995, then it crossed the 80,000 threshold in 2007, and the prison population in England and Wales is forecast to reach over 93,000 by the end of 2030. So what options are there to increase capacity? Well, one is, of course, to build more prisons. Labour has pledged to do that and create 14,000 more places by 2031. But this could be a challenge. Between 2010 and 2024, prison capacity increased by a net figure of 482 under the Conservatives. The government could also look at people who have been imprisoned for public protection, or IPP. That means they're still in prison not for what they've done, but for the risk they could pose to the public. Last year there were over 8,000 prisoners in that category. Another option is to change the sentences given to people. A review was last year carried out by the former Tory minister here, David Gauke, who recommended that prison sentences under 12 months be suspended, replaced with community sentences instead. That could free up over 7,000 prison places. But when you look at other countries, there is an argument that we rely too heavily on prisons here. Across the EU, on average, there are 113 prisoners for every 100,000 people. In France, it's 117, Spain a bit higher, 122. But look at the UK here, way above them all at a rate of 170, with that figure only set to rise, putting the overcrowding crisis into some international context here. Well, let's speak to Carl, who's back in Westminster now. And Carl, nobody, of course, wants to see criminals released early. Never a good look for a government. Labour blame the Conservatives, but 2 years in, do you think they've managed to grip this crisis?
Yeah, Labour do blame the Conservatives, but the prison crisis is such a massive mess that frankly it's visible from space. So even the Conservatives blame the Conservatives. They spent years increasing the lengths of sentences and didn't build the necessary prison places, although Kemi Badenoch says in mitigation their plans were interrupted by COVID. Then along came Labour and took up the prison building plans that the Tory government had belatedly introduced. They've sped them up a bit, so they are going ahead with that side of the equation, and now they've started dealing with the other side, which is to reduce some of the sentences, in some cases that the Conservatives put up. So those prisoners who will now be let out after half their sentence instead of 2/3, that was an increase that the Tories actually made 5 or 6 years ago. So we're just going back to that situation. That would seem to address the problem in the longer term, but in the immediate term, the coming weeks and months, there is still a crisis. I mean, the prison estate is at 97% capacity. There's very little room for manoeuvre there. And in carrying out the review, the government has pushed back the point at which this early release scheme will start from September to October. So in the very short term, they're not out of the woods.